Bonjour, bienvenue, merci de nous rejoindre comme chaque jour pour notre point de presse quotidien en direct sur EBS. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le vendredi 26 juin. Je vais commencer avec des annonces et en premier lieu avec l'agenda de la présidente pour la semaine prochaine. Mardi, la présidente participera à la vidéoconférence avec le président de la République de Corée, M. Moon Jae-in, avec évidemment le président du Conseil européen, M. Charles Michel. Cette vidéoconférence sera suivie d'une conférence de presse. Mercredi, la présidente présidera la réunion du collège, comme chaque semaine. Et jeudi après-midi, elle présidera une rencontre du collège et du gouvernement allemand dans le cadre du lancement de la présidence allemande du Conseil. Cette rencontre sera suivie d'une conférence de presse conjointe de la chancelière et de la présidente de la Commission. Then, I would like to remind you that you have a date tomorrow with Miley Cyrus, Justin Bieber, Shakira, Christine and the Queens, and many other stars who have joined the coronavirus global response, which is the global action for universal access to vaccines, tests, and treatment against coronavirus. The Global Goal Unite for Our Future Summit will start at 3 p.m. tomorrow, co-hosted by President von der Leyen. It will feature interventions by world leaders such as President Macron and Chancellor Merkel. At 8 p.m., the concert will start with an impressive lineup, which I will let you discover in our daily news. As you know, under the coronavirus global response, since end of April, the Commission has raised almost 10 billion euros to speed up the development and deployment of vaccines. The objective of the summit and concert is to raise even more funding to ensure access to vaccines everywhere on Earth for everyone who needs them, including in lower income countries or in communities that have been hit hard by the pandemic. So tune in tomorrow. You can find a list of all broadcasters across the world in our daily news. And of course, the events are going to be live streamed on all social media accounts of the Commission and on the Coronavirus Global Response website. I will now call on Marta for an announcement on the investment plan for Europe.
Hello, everyone. The investment plan for Europe continues in its quest to support climate action with 2 clean energy projects signed today. The European Investment Bank is providing 43.5 million euros for the construction and operation of the Cabrera solar energy plant in Spain. The plant will provide enough clean energy to supply nearly 145,000 households per year. It will create 350 jobs in the construction phase. The second project is in Austria. Here, the European Investment Bank is also providing 63 million euros to finance Simonsveld for the construction and operation of 2 new wind farms. Both projects are guaranteed by the European Fund for Strategic Investments. Using EU financial support in this way will help us, obviously, to meet the goals set by the European Green Deal and to reach climate neutrality by 2050. And you can find more information on those 2 projects on our website in the press releases. Thank you.
Merci Martha. Je termine avec la vidéoconférence du week-end. Demain, samedi 27 juin, la commissaire Maria Gabriel représentera la Commission lors de la réunion ministérielle virtuelle extraordinaire des ministres de l'éducation du G20 qui traitera de l'impact de la pandémie sur l'éducation. Et avec ceci, nous pouvons passer à vos questions. Et d'abord, Roberto de Sky Italia. Roberto, you have the floor. You seem to have an issue with the source of your mic. Yes, now it seems to be.
Let's try.
It was working. Go ahead.
Now it's working? Okay. A question about travels and flights. In order to avoid contacts inside the aircraft, the Italian Civil Aviation Authority has decided not to allow anymore the passengers to bring with them, to use, let's say, the overhead locker. So you cannot bring with you inside the aircraft and hand baggage unless you can place it under the seat in front of you. I don't remember this kind of measure was present among your recommendations. I would like to ask you if it is like this or not, and how do you assess this measure? And I would like to know if this kind of measure are in place in other member states. Thank you.
Thank you. This would be a question for Stéphane.
Hello, good morning, and thank you for your question. I'm afraid that I cannot comment on this specific measure that has been taken. What I would like to do, though, is to refer to the aviation safety protocols, which have been adopted by the ECDC and by the EASA, the European Aviation Safety Agency, just a few weeks ago, and which contains a whole set of recommendations addressed to the member states to help airports, travelers, crew dealing with the consequences of the crisis, and to try to make sure that measures are taken to ensure as much as possible the safety of the travelers and of the crew. Lots of recommendations are laid down in these safety protocols, recommendations which are made already before flights are taking place, recommendations regarding the entry into the airport, recommendations regarding what happens in the plane, recommendations regarding what happens on arrival. So all these recommendations have been addressed to the member states, and they have been invited to take these into account to set up the necessary regimes and security and safety protocols in airports, airlines, and so on. So it's up to airlines and airports to take these recommendations forward. But this is, I think, the only thing I can say at this stage.
Thank you, Stéphane. Any other questions for Stéphane on transport?
Can I have
follow
a
up. Go ahead. Sure.
Follow up? Thank you. Among these recommendations you mentioned, is there the avoiding of using the overhead locker?
Thank you very much. The truth is, for this, I would really have to go into the long document. I know that the guidelines, they foresee recommendations regarding passenger management during also flights, also regarding the ensuring physical distance, for instance. As to whether there are specific recommendations on using the air locker, I would have to go into the guidelines. I, by the way, invite you to take a look at these guidelines, which you will also find on the website of the European Aviation Safety Agency. Thank you.
Thank you. So please only keep your hand raised for the moment if you have a question for Stéphane on transport issues. We will try to finish on this issue. Transport as in safety of travel, not the issue of borders, which is different. Okay, I see 4 hands raised. No, fewer now. David, question pour Stéphane?
Oui, merci Eric. Question pour Stéphane sur le même sujet. C'est un follow-up à la question de Roberto, parce que c'est plus général en fait. On a les États membres, certains États membres surtout, et l'Italie c'est un cas particulier, qui sont en train d'adopter des normes, on pourrait dire techniques, comme celle-là, ou pour des raisons sanitaires ou pour d'autres raisons, à la fin, ont un résultat. Je ne sais pas si c'est l'objectif, peut-être c'est à vous de l'évaluer, c'est de nuire à certains opérateurs. Dans le cas spécifique, c'est les low cost. Par rapport à ce qu'on appelle une compagnie nationale, donc à l'Italia. Donc, je voulais savoir si vous êtes en train de regarder à tout ça, parce que on a soulevé plusieurs cas dans les semaines passées. Est-ce qu'il y a, de la part de certains États membres, et je vous demande le cas de l'Italie en particulier, une attitude en ce moment d'essayer de restreindre le marché intérieur et favoriser certains compagnies aériennes par rapport à d'autres, utilisant comme excuse, comme alibi, la crise sanitaire. Merci.
Thank you very much. Pardon, excusez-moi. Merci beaucoup, David. Ce que je peux dire là-dessus, je viens de faire référence à ces protocoles de sécurité pour l'aviation. Et pour nous, le point de départ dans tout ça, c'est la sécurité des voyageurs, la sécurité des équipes qui travaillent dans les avions. Et c'est le plus important pour nous, faire en sorte que les États membres assurent le plus possible la sécurité justement des voyageurs et du crew dans les avions. Et c'est ce qui compte. Évidemment, le but n'est pas de favoriser un ou l'autre société aérienne. Le but, c'est d'assurer la safety, la sécurité des voyageurs. Voilà, merci.
Je pense, David, que tes réflexions sont tout à fait pertinentes, bien entendu, mais je crois qu'il y a des mécanismes qu'on ne va pas détailler ici, mais qui permettent à des concurrents qui pensent que des mesures qui sont prises par des autorités, que ces décisions nuisent à leurs intérêts et ne sont pas justifiées, pour en référer soit aux instances nationales, soit aux instances européennes, afin que cela soit étudié. Donc il y a des mécanismes qui permettent de s'assurer que les règles qui doivent s'appliquer en termes de concurrence sont respectées et qu'on n'abuse pas les règles mises en place pour des raisons strictement sanitaires pour atteindre d'autres objectifs. Mais c'est par le biais de mécanismes de plainte de la part des acteurs économiques que ce genre de choses généralement se passe. Other questions for Stéphane? I see 2 hands raised, so I assume we can continue on this theme. I go to Tommaso. Tommaso, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you for the floor. I was wondering, it's a question about Alitalia. Sorry to insist on this, but the airline company keeps selling tickets to Brazil in August, while it is pretty evident that it will be impossible to fly to Brazil in August because there's a huge pandemic out there. So it's a behavior which airlines keep having just to test the market and to see, to evaluate the demand. But in the meantime, it's almost a scam towards passengers, which might end up paying hefty sums just to get a voucher in return. Are you going to do something to avoid this kind of practice? Thank you.
Tommaso, I'm afraid we have already had discussions on this time and time again here in the press room, and we really have nothing to add to what has been said previously here on the podium on this issue. So really, or if there is something new that we can say on the subject, we will gladly inform you. But for the moment, there is nothing that we can add to what has already been said here. Now, let me move to Agathe. Still on this issue. Agathe, please press speak.
Oui, vous m'entendez?
Merci, oui, on t'entend.
Ah, pardon. Bonjour, Agathe Cherki, l'Agence Europe. Moi, ma question porte plutôt sur le règlement sur les slots d'aéroport. Donc, l'UE a permis fin mars aux compagnies aériennes de déroger à ce règlement pour la période estivale et les compagnies demandent maintenant une prolongation donc pour la période hivernale, donc jusqu'en mars 2021, ce que permet le règlement. Je voulais juste savoir si la Commission envisageait déjà une telle prolongation.
Merci beaucoup, Agathe. À ce stade, les discussions sur le règlement sont au niveau des co-législateurs et c'est aux co-législateurs de se prononcer sur ces demandes-là. Donc, à ce stade-ci, nous n'avons pas des choses à ajouter. Merci.
Merci. Oliver, is your question on transport as well? If so, you have the floor. Can't hear you. Yes, go ahead. No?
Can you remind us this communication of yours from 13th of May about sort of the way forward in transport to get out of COVID? Do you have any sanctions if a member state or a transport provider, an airline, for example, introduces a measure that is not mentioned in this list and that is overshooting? I would suspect that you don't have sanctions because this is simply sort of a summing up of good sense measures and so forth. But what do you do if an airline, for example, decides to introduce measures that are clearly overshooting, like, for example, prohibiting the use of overhead bins, which I didn't find in your document? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Oliver. I think you've already raised, to a certain extent, the reply. We're talking here about recommendations which have been produced indeed on the 13th of May, recommendations which help member states to deal with the situation in the area of transport. So it's up to the member states to make the assessment, taking into account the epidemiological situation in the country and see which measures are the most worthwhile and the best to take. So we're talking here about recommendations, which is different from, I would say, hard law, where we're talking about hardcore regulations, where very strict obligations can be imposed on member states, and in which, in case of non-respect, obviously steps can be taken. But here we're talking about recommendations, which we invite member states to take on board. We also invite member states to discuss the measures that they are taking with each other in the context of the different coordination fora that exist, so that we have a coordinated approach to things. Of course, if we see that measures are totally disproportionate, then we will definitely talk about this with the member states. But let's not forget, as you said from the beginning, that we are talking here about recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no further questions on transport-related issues. So I would like to move back to Thomas from the FAZ, who I believe had questions. I saw him on the list before. Thomas.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Hi.
Yes, go ahead. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Eric. This question probably goes to you directly. Could you please update us on the meeting between the Commission President and Kosovo Prime Minister Hoti yesterday, and specifically, do you have or did you get any indication who's going to represent Kosovo in the EU facilitated dialogue with Serbia? Thank you.
Thank you. I will let Anna respond, if you don't mind, since this is her brief. Anna, you're going to have to do something about those papers.
I know, I promise I'm working on it.
So have an industrial accident here at some stage.
Especially for the back. I'm getting old. Sorry. So thanks so much, Thomas, for the question. We'll start maybe with Prime Minister Hoti. The President of the Commission had a good discussion yesterday evening with the Prime Minister of Kosovo, Mr. Abdullah Hoti. She was accompanied by the EU Special Representative for the Belgrade-Pristina dialogue, Miroslav Lajcak. The President thanked Prime Minister Hoti for choosing Brussels as his first visit abroad since he took office, something which demonstrates the importance that Kosovo attaches to the relations with the European Union. President von der Leyen conveyed to the Prime Minister of Kosovo that the Western Balkans are a priority for this Commission, something that we have said time and time again. For us, their future clearly lies in the EU, and this was a message that the President passed. The President also expressed support for the resumption of the EU-facilitated dialogue between Pristina and Belgrade, which is key for their progress in the EU. They both agreed on the importance of moving forward on the necessary reforms to advance on the EU path, in particular, the rule of law and the fight against corruption. They also discussed the consequences of the coronavirus pandemic and the assistance that the European Union has already mobilized to support the region. We've mobilized more than 3.3 billion euros so far, as you very well know. And the President confirmed that the Commission will present in the autumn an economic and investment plan to help underpin the long-term recovery of the region and to help bring it closer to the European Union. As regards to the meeting that the President held this morning with the President of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, the President also in this case, in this meeting was accompanied by the EUSR Lajcak. The meeting was an opportunity to follow up on the EU Western Balkan Summit at the beginning of May, where the leaders, as you know, reaffirmed their support for the European perspective for the whole region and their determination to tackle jointly the coronavirus pandemic. The President expressed support in the meeting with President Vučić for the resumption of the EU-facilitated dialogue between Pristina and Belgrade, which, as we have said, is key for the progress in the EU. Both sides also had the opportunity to discuss the agenda of reforms. They both agreed on the importance, again, of moving forward on the necessary for reforms to advance on the EU path, and again, in particular, in the case of the rule of law and the fight against corruption. Following the parliamentary elections in Serbia, the President encouraged the Serbian leadership to foster a genuine dialogue with all the political parties to take forward EU-related reforms, the need for a broad consensus, and to address, as a matter of priority, the electoral shortcomings. They also discussed the consequences of the coronavirus pandemic and the assistance that the EU has mobilized for the region. And again, the President also confirmed, of course, that we'll present in the autumn the economic and investment package to underpin the long-term recovery in the region as a whole.
Thank you, Anna. So, Thomas, this is what we can say about the meeting. We have no further details to add related to more specific questions as you were raising in your intervention, I'm afraid. Okay, let us move on. Are there other questions for Anna while she is on the podium related to her portfolio? Mose, do you have a question for Anna? Mose, you don't seem to have sound. I don't know if you can even hear me, actually, is what I'm being told. So let's see. Okay, let's move on to other issues. Momshil, go ahead.
Hello, I have two questions, and both them are related to Bulgaria. The first one is about the construction of the Belene nuclear plant. Has Bulgaria to send another new notification to the European Commission regarding to the construction, or the notification from 2007 is still valid? That's the first question. The second question is related with something that happened today. Today in Bulgaria were arrested the two main chiefs responsible for the fight against drug trafficking. So could it harm the intention, the CVM to Bulgaria to be scrapped? Because as we all know, it still technically exists. And could it harm the way of Bulgaria to joining the Schengen agreement? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Momshil. Two very different issues. The first, I believe, would be for Tim. I don't know if you will be able to answer such a specific question at such short notice, but Tim, I think it's for you.
Yeah, it is. Actually, it's not that short notice. We did have a bit of a heads up that this one was coming, so that's good.
Working well, good.
So yeah, so yeah, the choice between different energy sources is, of course, a member state competence. And if Bulgaria decides to relaunch the Belene project, it will need to ensure that the project complies with the Euratom Treaty and all the relevant secondary legislation. And what I can say for now is that we are in contact with the Bulgarian authorities regarding the steps to be complied with. They've informed the Commission about national actions which are being taken, and the authorities have declared their intention to follow all the necessary procedures for the timely and effective fulfillment of their obligations. So I think that should answer your question for now.
Thank you very much. Tim, I believe that your question on the arrests that you were mentioning would be for Christian. Christian, go ahead.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me and see me? Because I don't see myself. Okay.
Yes.
Good. Yes. Yes, indeed. That's for me. Well, Momshil, as you know, in the context of the CVM, we do not comment on individual cases, but we look at the general picture and steps taken by the Bulgarian authorities to address the recommendations. So I'm not going to comment on a specific case that you're mentioning. I can, of course, remind you that in the last CVM report, the Commission considered that the progress made by Bulgaria is sufficient to meet the commitments made at the time of Bulgaria's accession to the EU. So this still stands. At the same time, of course, we made clear that Bulgaria needs to ensure a continued implementation of the necessary reforms. In addition to this, the transition to the new upcoming rule of law mechanism will give the Commission the means to pursue work with Bulgaria on necessary reforms.
Okay, the joys of
Thank you.
teleworking. Thanks a lot. It's Friday after all. A bit of fun is involved. Okay, let us move on now to America. America, I don't know if you can hear me, but you have the floor. Okay. Yes. Press speak, please.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. And I apologize, it's raining quite hard where I am, so if it's a background noise, my apologies. This is a question about the two American legislative proposals that now have been presented in US Congress seeking to apply sanctions to EU businesses and persons working on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. High Representative Borrell provided a written answer yesterday to a question by MEP Emmanuel Morel, and this is my translation of the French. The Commission is preparing the ground in view of adopting a mechanism of reinforced sanctions, which will strengthen Europe's resilience in the face of the effects of application of any extraterritorial sanctions by third countries. Could we get a little bit more detail on exactly what is meant by the Commission is preparing the ground and what exactly any response sanctions might entail? Thank you.
I really don't think that we will be in a position to comment more on something that we are working on at this stage. We are not in the habit of actually revealing our proposals. If we're saying that we are working on a proposal, obviously it is that this is thinking and work in progress. So we would ask for your patience until we are ready to reveal more details on this. Sorry for that. Okay, let us move on to Tommaso. Again, Tommaso. We can't hear you.
Now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we could. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, it's just one question on competition, if I may, because in Italy, in the financial sector, there are quite a number of things happening. I mean, the biggest Italian bank is going to take over one medium-sized bank, Intesa Sanpaolo, with Ubibanca, and the first insurance company, Generali, is going to take over a mid-sized insurance company, Cattolica. And the competition authorities in Italy then do not seem very active on these issues. I wonder if the European antitrust authorities are going to give a wake-up call to the Italian authorities on this or not. Thank you.
Okay, this is a question for Arianna, but I'm not sure she will be using that sort of vocabulary, to be honest. Arianna.
Hi, Tommaso. I would not use that language for sure. I will need to check what is the status of these transactions, if they have been notified to us or not, and I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you. Okay, let us move on to Marine.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
C'est une question sur le communiqué d'aujourd'hui sur la pollution de l'air. Et je voulais savoir si c'était possible d'en savoir un petit peu plus, parce que vous dites que la plupart des États membres ne sont pas sur la voie qui leur permettrait de réduire la pollution atmosphérique, mais je voulais savoir si vous pouviez être un petit peu plus précis sur les États membres concernés et si ça concerne principalement le NOx et les particules fines, ou si c'est un autre problème. Enfin, voilà, si vous pouviez nous en dire un tout petit peu plus là-dessus. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Donc, effectivement, on a publié aujourd'hui le rapport sur la mise en œuvre de directives sur la pollution de l'air. Et comme vous avez pu voir, malheureusement, la situation pour le moment n'est pas extraordinaire. Nous avons mis en place le cadre pour aider les pays membres à arriver à un point où nous n'avons plus de problèmes spécifiques avec la pollution d'air. Pour ça, on a agréé déjà en 2016 la directive sur la réduction des émissions nationales. Et à travers cette directive, les pays membres ont l'obligation de mettre en place les plans nationaux
qui sont vraiment, qui comptent de tous les secteurs de l'État et dont l'objectif est alors arriver à une situation avec le moindre possible pollution d'air. Et on a mis en place aussi les objectifs, comment arriver à 2030 pour une réduction de 50% de pollution d'air. Quand nous regardons quels sont les problèmes principaux, c'est certainement lié à différentes sortes de pollution, mais quand on a publié alors notre rapport général, on a publié aussi le rapport des consultants qui est sur les analyses que chaque pays membre a fait. Et là, nous avons les références à où il faut faire le plus d'efforts. Une de ces secteurs est certainement pour la réduction dans le domaine de l'agriculture. Et c'est ce qui concerne les émissions d'ammoniac. Et c'est lié fort à la stratégie de la ferme à l'assiette que nous avons adoptée aussi en mois de mai, qui prévoit exactement des réductions en ce qui concerne l'utilisation de fertilizers. Engrais, exactement, d'engrais et d'autres produits chimiques dans l'agriculture. Quand nous regardons plus spécifiquement pour les pays membres, nous avons plusieurs cas d'infraction. On a 31 cas d'infraction qui sont en cours pour ce qui concerne la pollution d'air. Je peux envoyer... Vu que c'est 31 cas, vous pouvez bien comprendre que ça reflète sur plusieurs pays membres. Et je peux envoyer ces données après. Donc, en gros, ce que nous voyons, c'est que nous avons la situation où on a mis en place les objectifs où on veut arriver. Nous avons les pays membres qui, majoritairement, ont fait leur plan national. On a fait l'analyse qui voit qu'il y a beaucoup plus de travail à faire. Et c'est très important, évidemment, dans le cadre de Green Deal, de l'accord vert. Nous avons dit, donc comme j'ai dit, on a déjà venu avec la stratégie c'est ce qui concerne l'agriculture qui soit plus durable, etc., et qui aura des bons résultats, normalement, vis-à-vis de la pollution d'air. En 2021, on viendra aussi avec le plan d'action de zéro pollution en ce qui concerne tout, l'air, les eaux et la terre. Donc, c'est le travail qui est en cours, mais je pense on a fait ce rapport aussi exactement en vue de tirer l'attention à tout ce qui reste encore à faire dans les pays membres.
Merci beaucoup, Viviane. Marine, je t'invite évidemment à lire le rapport et ses différentes annexes qui ont été mentionnées par Viviane pour avoir plus d'informations spécifiques, notamment pays par pays. Mais je crois que là, c'est déjà un très bon résumé des points essentiels. Merci. Y a-t-il d'autres questions sur ce sujet? Sinon, je vais repasser à Mose, qui avait tout à l'heure un problème.
Yes.
Mose.
Thank you, Eric. Hi. Yes, this is a foreign affairs question, I suppose, for Peter, if he's available. And it Okay. And it concerns, the approaching deadline, the 1st of July next week, when the Israeli government might decide unilaterally on annexation of part of the West Bank, which is a matter of great concern for the international community and for European Union also. And I would like to ask if the Commission and the High Representative Borrell, if they are planning to do any last-minute attempts, let's say, to convince the Israeli government not to go ahead with such a step. For example, does the High Representative plan to travel to Israel? I understand that he has started to do external travels. And what do you think will be the consequences for EU-Israeli relations if that would happens, unilateral annexation of parts of the West Bank? Do you think, for example, that there will be sanctions on EU level or maybe by individual member states? Thank you.
I believe that we have already answered the second question quite a few times, Mose, in terms of not wanting to speculate, but I give the floor to Peter on the first.
Indeed, thank you for the question and the comments. There is really nothing new that I would add in addition to what we have been communicating before or until now. Maybe just to stress that there is no need for last-minute attempt because we are engaged in ongoing activities. If you have been following the exchanges by the foreign ministers during their last video conference when they were discussing the issue of the Middle East, 1 month ago, there was clear agreement that we would proceed by using all the diplomatic means in order to prevent the annexation from happening, engaging with all the partners, with Israelis, Palestinians, the United States, all the actors in the region, and to make sure that we don't need to go into the speculations and considerations what to do if. So all the efforts, not last-minute efforts, but ongoing constant efforts over the last few weeks have been focused on explaining how dangerous and destabilizing this unilateral move, which is in violation of the international law, would be, and focusing all our energies and efforts to prevent this from happening. And if it happens, then we would need to react accordingly. But we are not there yet. And on the travels, indeed, you've seen that HRVP is now visiting 2 member states, Greece and Cyprus. And as he stressed also several times, he is ready to travel also to the Middle East. When the conditions allow it, we have to take into account also the health advice related to coronavirus pandemic still. And when there is a need, he is always ready to travel to speak to the partners on the ground.
Thank you very much. Athanasios, apologies. I now understand you had a question, another question on the report. We'll revert back to you, but let's continue on foreign affairs since Peter is on the podium. Are there other questions related to foreign affairs for us today? Giuseppe, is your question on foreign affairs?
No, it's not on foreign affairs.
Okay. Then I see no other questions except the question from Athanasios. So thank you, Peter. Vivian, I call you back on stage. Sorry for that. Athanasios, go ahead.
Thanks very much. I read the report in the Annex 3 on the assessment of the risk of non-compliance with the emission reduction commitments. And I can see that some countries are not assessed because they did not submit a report or they were late in their submission. Those are Greece, Italy, Luxembourg, Latvia, and Malta. My question is specifically on Greece. Were they late or did they not submit a report at all, a national plan, I mean? And if the later is the case, what action did you take about the situation? Thanks.
Thanks, Athanasios. Indeed, the situation with Greece is that that they have not submitted their report, and I believe that we have already launched infringement on that in May.
Okay, that is something that we will double check because that's a strong statement. So let's make sure that we confirm this information. So we will come back to you, Athanasios, just to make absolutely sure that this is what happened. Thank you. Giuseppe.
Alors, bonjour Eric. Je me demande, dans le cas d'une nouvelle vague de la pandémie du coronavirus, je me demande, est-ce que vous êtes préoccupé et comment la Commission européenne va se préparer? Merci.
Oui, Stéphane, donc c'est une question sur nos préparations pour une deuxième vague éventuelle de la pandémie. En français.
En français, très bien, ok. Bonjour. Comment est-ce que nous nous préparons pour une resurgence ou une nouvelle arrivée du virus? En fait, notre joint roadmap que nous avons adopté il y a un peu de temps, ainsi que nos lignes directrices du 13 mai concernant le tourisme, le transport, et c'est justement tous de nous préparer mieux à gérer cette situation. Nous travaillons ensemble avec les États membres pour préparer une arrivée potentielle ou un nouveau accroissement potentiel des cas du coronavirus. Nous travaillons avec les États membres pour assurer qu'il y a de bonnes stratégies de testing sur place, qu'il y a de bons contact tracing et que les capacités des soins de santé sont suffisamment fortes pour éviter un overburdening, je dirais, du système de santé. Nous voyons en effet, en général, que le nombre de cas de corona est en train de descendre, ce qui a permis au gouvernement de graduellement rouvrir et reprendre des activités économiques et sociales. Ce qui est important maintenant, c'est d'assurer que que les nouvelles actions qui sont prises ne mettent pas en péril le progrès qui a été atteint ces derniers mois. Et c'est justement pour cela, comme j'ai dit au début, que nous avons adopté une série de lignes directrices dans le domaine, par exemple, du transport, tourisme et autres, qu'on a adopté une feuille de route dans le cadre de la reprise des activités pour aider les États membres à faire des étapes graduelles. Et donc nous continuons à suivre avec les États membres et avec l'aide du ECDC la situation. On fait un monitoring très poussé là-dessus pour être prêt si jamais, dans le cadre des nouvelles activités économiques et sociales, des nouveaux cas du virus apparaîtraient.
Merci Stéphane. Et à cela, je rajouterai bien entendu tout le travail qui est fait sur la stratégie pour les vaccins et la coopération notamment avec l'industrie afin de les aider à mener les investissements et les recherches nécessaires le plus rapidement possible, car nous savons tous que ce n'est que lorsque nous disposerons d'un vaccin efficace contre le virus que nous pourrons réellement nous sentir en sécurité face à une résurgence éventuelle. Donc ça fait aussi partie évidemment de notre travail de préparation. Voilà, je ne vois pas d'autres questions pour nous aujourd'hui. Il me reste donc simplement à vous souhaiter un bon week-end et nous nous retrouverons ici en salle de presse lundi comme d'habitude. Merci, au revoir.